Hi, I'm Maria. I just finished Master of Science in Sustainability Management, and I come from Chile.
My name is Dastan. I'm from Kyrgyzstan, and I've just finished my master's degree in electrical engineering.
My name is Nabil. I'm originally from Malaysia. I graduated with a Master's of Public Health.
I'm Elizabeth. I graduated with my bachelor's degree in business administration, and I am from Uganda.
I love studying in the US because you learn not only by studying but also working in.
So OPT stands for Optional Practical Training. It's a temporary employment that is related to the field of your major.
Students who are eligible for OPT can apply for up to 12 months.
My OPT gives me a chance to explore different parts of myself that I have not before. I currently work as an accounts payable specialist, and there's so many skills I've acquired from the job that I'm doing. I'm very grateful for it.
OPT in the United States is an eye-opening experience for me. I work in a research lab investigating Alzheimer's among aging African American. I learn the in and outs of the research field, how academia works, and new technology, new discovery every single day.
I work in a company where we provide advice for green buildings. So I applied for the STEM 24 months extension because I wanted to go in deeper in that practical experience, and that I wanted to apply everything that I have learned here back to Latin America.
CPT stands for Curriculum Practical Training. It's a program that allows you to work during your school. For me, I wanted to be a part of something significant and global. So during my CPT internship, I explore energy market and emerging technologies. And I'm sure that my CPT will help me to be a part of this transition to sustainable future.
OPT is a chance to take what you studied from your degree and put it into the real world. And I love that there's a chance for us to experience that in the United States.
Hello everyone, welcome to Education USA webinar. My name is Elida, I'm Education USA advisor. Happy to welcome you all for our today's webinar, and our topic is studying healthcare in the United States. So please let me introduce you our dear speaker, Rebekka Kehé, who is Director of International Student Services from the University of Мэри Hardin-Bейлор. So please welcome, floor is yours. We will have a presentation, and after we're gonna follow with Q&A session.
All right, thank you, Alida, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm very excited to be able to talk with you more about healthcare studies in the United States. At my university, we are a historic women's university, and so we have a lot of healthcare programs, and we talk about this all the time with students as they're going through their application process and as they are entering their different healthcare programs. So we can go ahead and go to the next slide. Today, we're going to be talking about a couple of the different types of healthcare programs in the United States. You'll see the list here of some of the different programs that we'll be discussing, some that you may be familiar with and some that might be new to you. But we'll talk about each of them in terms of what do they study, what are the career outcomes for them, and what are some tips on how to apply and identify schools that would be a good fit for that specific type of program. So we'll go ahead and go to our next slide. So first, starting with an MD or a medical doctor's degree. There's so many different reasons why students choose to become an MD. It is probably considered the highest level of a healthcare degree in the world. The scope of what you do is everything from providing that highest level of healthcare as a doctor in regular medical practices, but also much more specialized fields like surgical work and things like that. An MD has, some of the highest level of job security of any position in the world. As healthcare needs rise globally, the need for MD specialists in all sorts of different fields and emerging fields are going to continue to grow. MDs have the highest earning potential since they do have the highest level of expertise within the field of healthcare studies. And in the United States, and as we're seeing in other parts of the world as well, MDs do have a lot of flexibility in the type of work that they're able to do. So you are able to set up your own schedule if you're opening your own practice. If you want to work in a large hospital or a small health clinic, everybody is looking for specialists in this specific field. There's also a lot of opportunity now post-COVID to be able to do telehealthcare work where you meet virtually with patients and things like that. So we can go ahead and go to our next slide. So just to give you an idea in the United States, what the kind of salary range you'll see for MD individuals, the highest level of pay currently right now on average in the United States is an orthopedist, ranging to almost $500,000 a year, typically on average. You'll see the mid-level or kind of the standard healthcare specialist is typically a family medicine physician or just a regular healthcare physician that does more preventative care and wellness care for patients. And then public health physicians are individuals that work with nonprofits or in government hospitals. And you'll see kind of their average salary. They're on the lowest tier of MD earning potential, at least in the United States. So we'll go to the next slide here. So timeline of becoming an MD in the United States. The US is a little different than most parts of the world. For our MD students, we do require a pretty extensive and rigorous education process. So following your secondary school, after you finish high school, you would study and complete a bachelor's degree, which we would require a 4-year degree, or typically the equivalent of a 4-year degree. The prerequisite courses for medical school are typically done at this point in time. If they are not done in the bachelor's degree, you would have to take those courses after the bachelor's degree before entering a medical school. We also require that students take what's called the Medical College Admission Test, or the MCAT. This exam looks at critical thinking, looks at written expression, mathematics, science, to assess your knowledge of the qualities that you would need to know as you enter medical school. And it compares you against other students who are preparing to enter into medical school. And during that bachelor's degree also, you would be applying to different medical schools. In the United States, as you know, there are over 4,000 different universities. Not every university is a medical school, but those that do typically have one or two areas that they really specialize in. And so navigating and determining which medical schools are going to fit your specific academic and career goals is a process as well, that you do want to make sure that the schools that you're applying to are going to help you achieve those specific goals. After you finish your bachelor's degree, you then study and complete your medical school studies, which typically takes about 4 years. This is rigorous academic study within your specific specialization and also in your general medical studies. When you've completed that, you then go into what's called the residency training program, or a fellowship training in your specific field of medical studies. So this typically is another 3 to 7 years where you are working under other doctors that do practice the same type of medical studies that you want to practice. So whether you want to do just typical preventative healthcare work, you may only have to do a residency of maybe 3 years. If you're wanting to do a specialized surgical work after you complete your medical studies and become an orthopedic surgeon or a plastic surgeon or something like that, for example, then it may take up to 7 years of working under other medical professionals to be really prepared to open up your own practice. Some individuals, after they have done that initial residency, do a second fellowship in a subspecialty. This is pretty unusual, but for some individuals, they do want to get a subspecialty practice before they go into their own self-practice, and that could take an additional 1 to 3 years. So on average, it will take about 10 to 12 years from the start of your bachelor's degree to the point where you would be opening up your own medical practice to become a licensed doctor in the United States. We'll go to the next slide. So in that first step of choosing a school to do your pre-med studies, if you have not completed a bachelor's degree yet and you're planning to do your bachelor's degree in the United States, a couple of tips as you're navigating and determining what school would be a good pre-med school. One thing that universities do disclose is their MCAT pass rate for pre-med students. So you do want to take a look and see, of their pre-med students, the students that are planning to go to medical school, how many of them passed the MCAT, or what percentage did they on average receive on their MCAT exam. That'll give you a good picture that the pre-med education at that school is really pairing the student with the information that they need in order to be successful in medical school down the line. You'll also want to meet with the pre-med advisor if it's possible to meet virtually with them before you commit to the school, to get a good picture of what that school typically prepares students for. Do they prepare students typically to go into orthopedic study? Are they able to really prepare you to go into pediatrics or all sorts of other different areas? I think it's really important to have a good relationship with the pre-med advisor at the university, because they'll be working closely with you to help you get into med school. You'll also want to take a look at the requirements for the different MD schools that you're interested in studying. So if you know that your end goal is to go into just regular practice doctor work, or if you're interested in doing pediatric care, you'll want to take a look and see what schools offer those types of programs and what are the things that they look for in applicants. Are there certain prerequisite courses that you keep seeing that they ask for in the bachelor's degree? Is there a typical GPA or minimum MCAT requirements? Because that may also help you identify the schools that would be a good fit for you in your pre-med studies. In your pre-med studies, you'll want to get experience in any kind of lab that you'd be able to work in, either volunteering or shadowing. So if your school has a really strong biology program, getting the opportunity to work as a student worker or as a volunteer or intern in the biology lab will be a really good piece to be able to add to your application for an MD program down the line. MD programs typically will ask for letters of recommendation from faculty or individuals like a pre-med advisor, but as you apply to the MD program. So you do want to ask for those letters of recommendation early and also share with your recommenders what schools you're planning to apply to. That way they can really pair that letter with the types of qualities that school is specifically looking for. And as you apply to MD programs, you will want to check early in terms of what funding opportunities may be available. Some MD programs will have scholarships or other fellowships that would be available to you, and others will have very specific or early deadlines for any type of funding. So you will want to plan ahead of time. We'll go to our next slide. All right, so moving on down the line to the other healthcare programs that we're going to be talking about today. Next, we'll be looking at nursing, which nurses pair a lot with medical doctors in hospital care, in regular family practice care, in other areas of healthcare. As nurses, with nursing, individuals work with doctors as they provide the more rigorous care, and nurses then provide that more recovery and overall wellness type of care. So as someone comes out of surgery, a nurse will be there to provide that recovery care and provide that support to a patient and to a doctor. Nursing in the United States is a very job secure field. I think in most parts of the world it's the same. As different health needs continue to grow, as more complicated healthcare is needed for different types of patients, nurses are always needed to provide that overall recovery care after different types of intensive surgeries or healthcare practices. So we'll talk more about the nursing shortage in the United States in the upcoming slides, but this is a field that is never going to go away, and there's always going to be an increased need of nurses globally. Nurses also have pretty high earning potential, and we'll talk about that in the next few slides. And as different types of kind of overall wellness and preventative care is becoming a growing trend in the world, of having medical officials being able to come in and meet with patients before they get sick or before there's a more intensive medical need to help identify areas that may be able to improve overall health. Nurses are very much on the front line of providing that type of care. So there is the same kind of flexibility that you'll see with MD practitioners with nurses as well. In the United States, telenursing care has become a very big area where patients are able to meet over the phone with a nurse to help identify if their medical needs require more intensive care or if they're able to get a prescription for certain medical needs that they might have. You'll see a couple of different specializations in the United States. Nurses are there from the time of birth until the time of death, providing care to patients throughout, the entire lifespan of an individual. So we'll go to our next slide. In the United States, when you come and study nursing, there are two different types of nursing degrees that are available. The first one is a registered nurse or an RN. This is a 2-year program. It's an associate's degree in nursing. And then the second program is a Bachelor's of Science in Nursing or a BSN. This is a 4-year bachelor's degree. An RN or an ADN degree is typically taught at a community college in the United States. Most U.S. community colleges do offer this program because of the nursing shortage. It is in high demand, and most colleges are trying to meet that demand. After you've completed your degree in an ADN, you take what's called the NCLEX exam. The NCLEX exam is a state certification exam where in whatever state you're planning to practice nursing, for the state to be able to ensure that you have the knowledge and the skill set to be a nurse in a private or public hospital or medical facility in that specific state. Most of the NCLEX exams are pretty similar in terms of what they ask for. And a lot of times if you pass an NCLEX in a certain state, there will be certain states that will accept that NCLEX exam for you to practice nursing in a different state. One of the things to kind of keep in mind if you do an ADN or an RN degree is that a BSN over an ADN. So you may be able to practice just general nursing with an ADN, but if you want to do a specialized nursing field like pediatric nursing or midwifery nursing, you would need a BSN. Another thing to keep in mind if you are considering going on to an H-1B and working in the United States more long term, H-1Bs require that you have to have a bachelor's degree. So an ADN does not qualify for an H-1B. After a student completes an ADN, students can do a 1-year OPT, which is typically what students will do, and then they transition on to finish another 2 years in a BSN. So the Bachelor's of Science of Nursing is a 4-year degree. The first 2 years of a BSN is an ADN essentially, and then there's 2 more years of more specialized study that you do to complete a bachelor's degree in nursing. You would need a bachelor's degree in nursing in order to go on to a master's or a doctorate level in nursing or some other type of healthcare studies. I've had some students that have done their pre-med studies as a nursing major and then transitioned over to an MD program later down the line. After you finish a BSN, you also have to take an NCLEX exam If you previously did an ADN degree and you passed your NCLEX, as long as your NCLEX is still active, you wouldn't have to take the NCLEX exam again. But if it's your first time taking the NCLEX after a BSN, you would have to take it in the state you want to be certified. Most BSNs also start at higher salaries just by the nature of having the higher degree, and it gives you more flexibility in terms of the type of nursing that you're able to practice. We'll go to our next slide. So looking at a couple of the types of jobs that an ADN is qualified to do and the types of jobs that a BSN you are required to have in order to work in those types of positions, you'll see average salaries for both are very strong. And this is a national average salary. So looking at every single state in the United States, not just the higher cost of living types of states. And when we look at the job growth projections for nursing in the United States, every single area in nursing is seeing almost a double-digit projection for the next 5 to 10 years, with some of them having pretty significant needs in the market. So no matter where you start, whether you start in an ADN or if you start with a BSN, or what type of nursing you'd be interested in practicing in the United States, you have really a ton of choices to choose what type of work you'd want to do, where you'd want to work, and how you would want to set up your schedule. We'll go to the next slide. When you go into a BSN program, typically there is what's called either the pre-nursing track or a direct nursing track. Roughly 75% of BSN programs will be a pre-nursing track, with about 25% of BSN programs being what's called direct nursing track. With a pre-nursing track, you have to meet the general university requirements. So if the university requires that you need to have a high school diploma and that you would need to have an English proficiency exam, maybe some letters of recommendation, whether you were going to be pre-nursing or business, you would need to meet those general university requirements in order to be admitted as a pre-nursing student. A direct entry nursing program, they're going to ask that you meet the university's requirements, but also meet very specific nursing admission requirements. And even if you met those general university requirements in a direct nursing program, if you don't meet those nursing requirements as well, you will not be admitted into the school or the nursing program. I think we can jump to the next slide. Perfect. Okay. So in a pre-nursing program, you would complete the nursing prerequisite courses, and you would need to have a specific GPA and maintain that specific GPA. This is typically done in the first year to first year and a half of your studies at the university. So with a bachelor's degree, there is typically certain general education courses that you have to take, like public speaking. You would have to take a lab science, things like that. So you'd be completing all of that and completing these specific pre-nursing prerequisite courses. So typically biochem, biology, chemistry, those are generally prerequisite courses you'd have to take. So as long as you maintain that specific GPA that they ask for you to have when you're entering the university, while you're taking those courses, you would then apply to be formally added to the nursing program. And this is typically done within the first 1 to 2 years of your studies. Like I said, with the direct nursing program, you have to meet the general requirements for admission for the university, but also meet specific nursing requirements. This is typically a higher high school GPA or specific courses done in high school, like a certain number of lab sciences or mathematics courses. And if those aren't met, you aren't able to be admitted to the university or the nursing program. While you're in that direct nursing program, you have to complete those nursing prerequisite courses like biochem, biology, chemistry, and you have to maintain a specific GPA. If you don't meet that specific GPA, you are dismissed from the nursing program and you return to the university as just a undeclared major. You're able to remain into that nursing program as long as you maintain that specific GPA. So depending on the nursing programs that you apply to, you may see that they will talk about being a pre-nursing program or direct nursing track. This is the main difference between the two of them. It's mainly going to be those admission requirements at the time that you enter the university. Do you just have to meet the general requirements, or will they have specific requirements for nursing majors? And then during the program, is there a period of time that you have to do a formal application to the nursing program? Or is there a GPA you have to maintain in order to not be dismissed from your existing nursing offer? We'll go to the next slide. So when choosing a nursing program, a couple of things to keep in mind. You'll want to take a look and see what is the NCLEX pass rate for those nursing graduates at that school. All universities are required to disclose this information on their website or have that information readily available for nursing majors. You'll want to find a school that has a pretty solid first pass rate for an NCLEX. Students are able to take an NCLEX a couple of times after they graduate in order to get licensed in their state. It's typically two to three attempts depending on the state, but you really want to find a school that has a good first time pass rate. That way you don't have to stress about taking that exam again. You'll want to also ask the advisors at that school where their clinical sites are. As you go into your nursing program, you'll be doing clinical rotations, or kind of like internship or field work, being able to observe different types of nursing areas. So hospitals, at-home care, those types of things are the things that you observe on your clinical rotations. You'll want to know, what do those rotations look like? And, depending on where the school is, how easily accessible will it be for you to get from site to site. You'll also want to take a look if you're planning to do an ADN or if you're planning to do a BSN, whether it's direct entry or pre-nursing. What are the requirements for you to enter their program? Are there specific requirements that you would need to meet general university requirements? And then what are the requirements to formally enter that nursing program? You'll also want to check and see if the school is going to require any other type of exams. Some schools require an SAT or ACT, others do not. And you'll also want to see if they have nursing scholarships and what is the deadline or the criteria for those. We'll go to the next slide. So the next field of study that we're going to talk about is a physician assistant. This is a fairly newer field of study in the United States, and it's becoming a global type of area as well. In the United States, physician assistants have been around for almost 60 years, and there are around 168,000 physician assistants in the United States. Physician assistants work as healthcare professionals kind of as a gap between nurses and MDs. So they're able to do more than what a nurse is able to do or have authority to do, but there are certain things that they are not able to do that an MD would be qualified to do. So you'll see a couple of examples of what they're able to do. They provide more assistance in surgery. They're able to do more extensive work than a nurse would in surgery. They're able to perform patient exams, so providing just wellness checkups for families, children, babies, all those types of things. They're able to kind of do that wellness checkup that a doctor does, just to do that overall preventative care. They're able to prescribe medication and order laboratory tests and x-rays. So that's another big difference between nurses and physician assistants. PAs have the authority to be able to write prescriptions for patients. And they're also able to help develop and oversee different treatment plans for preventative care. So they're able to kind of help diagnose problems for patients and help come up with a treatment plan. And as long as the treatment plan doesn't become too extensive, they're able to oversee that whole treatment plan for their patients. So in the United States, physician assistants see over 500 million patients every year. And like I said, they've really kind of taken over a lot of that preventative healthcare and overall wellness healthcare, and providing that lower level type of care in the United States to be able to give doctors more time to do the more intensive care. We'll go to the next slide. So you'll see for education for physician assistants in the United States, like we talked about, there's 4,000 universities in the US. 306 of them have physician assistant programs in the US. And pretty much every state, there's at least one school that offers this program. You're required to do 2,000 hours of clinical rotations in your program. Typically, a physician assistant program will take about 1.5 to 3 years, depending on what type of school that you're going to and how they set up their clinical rotations and things like that. So for example, at my university, we have a physician assistant program. We require the students to enroll in summer, fall, and spring for 2 to 2.5 years, depending on how they do with their coursework. Whereas other universities will only require students to be enrolled in fall and spring, it may take them 3 years to finish all the coursework and the clinical hours to be licensed as a PA. The degree is considered a master's degree level of education, so it's not considered a doctorate degree. It is something that you're able to do immediately after a bachelor's degree. Physician assistants, as you can see with their licensing process, they have to pass a certification exam after they finish their degree in order to be certified in PA work. And you are required to continue a recertification process and continue medical education every periodic period of time to meet those 100 hours of continuing education. So in order to keep your license, you have to continue to learn the different trends and things that are happening in the field of physician assistant. We'll go on to the next slide. So you'll see here kind of an idea of what physician assistants do in their work, the type of work that they do, where do they work, and their average salary. So physician assistants, like I said, they're kind of between a nurse and a doctor, and we do see with their salary that is pretty reflective of where they kind of stand. You'll see in a breakdown here, most people, I think, assume that physician assistants work mostly in hospitals, but we've seen that shift, that physician assistants are working more in health clinics, and those would be just regular doctor's office, wellness kind of checkups, those types of things. And then you'll also see, in terms of the type of work that they do, that other category really runs a lot of different types of care, whether that is writing prescriptions and setting up x-ray appointments and things like that. So there's so much that physician assistants are able to do, and you're really able to kind of set up how you want to work and what type of scope you'd want to work as a physician assistant. We'll go to the next slide. So in choosing a physician assistant program in the United States, you'll want to look and see what is their certification pass rate. So the university should have that information readily available for you. And if they aren't able to provide that very quickly, you should be able to find that information from the university in a period of a couple of days. You'll want to identify what their clinical sites are. Do the clinical sites that they offer, are they mostly in hospitals doing more of that outpatient care, or are they more in kind of family practice facilities where you're doing more preventative care? Is it a good mix? Does it meet what you're looking for? And, are those sites going to accomplish the goals that you have in terms of your contact hours? You'll also want to look and see what are the requirements for the schools that you're interested in. So what are the university admission requirements? And then what are the requirements for that specific physician assistant program? Physician assistant programs use an application that's called the CASPA. It's a national application process. So all physician assistant programs that are licensed do their application through this CASPA application. So you're able to apply to a couple of different schools at the same time. And there'll be specific requirements that'll be on that CASPA application that are required for licensing purposes in the United States. You'll also want to ask the school what their prerequisite coursework requirements are for their program. Do you have to complete those undergraduate prerequisites in the United States, or will they accept credit from outside of the United States? And if so, what evaluation would they ask for? Would they need a WES evaluation of those courses outside of the US, or would they do the evaluation at the university? You'll also want to see if there's any other exams that you would need to prepare before you apply. Most schools don't require a GMAT or a GRE for their physician assistant program, but you do want to check and see. And then also ask and identify what will those scholarships be. Do they offer specific scholarships for physician assistant? Are there other types of assistantships that may be available to you? We'll go to the next slide. So next we'll be talking about both occupational therapy and physical therapy. These are our last two healthcare programs that we'll be talking about today. So just to give you a breakdown of the difference between the two, because they do both provide very unique care, but the way that they provide care is a little different. So occupational therapy, they provide care to help improve a patient's ability to perform daily living tasks. So if a patient has had a stroke and they've been in hospital care and now they are coming home and they have to relearn how to wash dishes, prepare their meals, bathe themselves, those types of things based upon that specific, health situation that they had, this is what an occupational therapist does. They walk them through, moving around their home, doing those daily activities, identifying if there's certain things that they might be able to set up, like railing and things like that, to be able to make it easier for the patient to be able to continue living in their home and being able to thrive in their home. They, like I said, they often work with patients who either had a physical injury or some type of physical disability, some type of a brain injury. Those are the most common types of things that an occupational therapist will be helping to give that patient independence in their home again. In the United States, occupational therapists have a 24% job growth within the next 2 years. You'll see their average salary there nationally. And a master's of occupational therapy is a 2-year degree program to complete and to be certified. Physical therapists work on improving a patient's ability to move immediately after some type of a debilitating injury, brain injury, or physical disability that has happened. So they typically work in a hospital, or they work with a patient immediately after they've been discharged from a hospital to be able to give them that movement independence for them to be able to then transition over to working with an occupational therapist who would work with them more on giving them independence in their home. So physical therapists have to do a lot more of the intensive, immediate after injury or after incident care to give the patient that basic movement and basic independence to be able to then go and work with an occupational therapist to do more of that logistical, how do I wash my dishes, how do I bathe myself type of care. Physical therapists also are seeing a significant job growth projection within the next 2 years. And you'll see their average salary there as well. It is considered a doctorate degree. So it is a bit more of an intensive, longer kind of field of study than a physician assistant or an occupational therapist. It typically takes 2.5 to 3 years to complete the program and become licensed as a physical therapist. We'll go to the next slide. So a couple of things to kind of note about occupational therapy, if that is a field that you're considering. It is a fast-growing field. Right now in the United States, there are 9,600 openings for occupational therapists, and on average, there are only about 4,500 to 5,000 graduates every year in this field. So there is really a lot of choice in terms of where you would want to work and immense job security as well. In terms of the flexibility for occupational therapists, some occupational therapists work in facilities that are set up to look like a home, to give a patient, the ability to kind of navigate around and see where are their kind of trouble spots, and how can the occupational therapist help them overcome those trouble spots. Other occupational therapists, and I think this is the more common area, is them going to this actual patient's home and helping them identify how they're going to navigate around their home and recover and regain that independence. So occupational therapists have a very unique kind of flexibility in their work, because a lot of times they are traveling from patient to patient's home, and really setting up very specific game plans with their patients to give them the independence that they need in their specific home. We'll go to the next slide. So when choosing an occupational therapy program, you will want to see what is their certification pass rate. Just like with every other program that we've talked about today, occupational therapists have to meet a certification in the state that they're planning to practice in. So you will want to see, how does your school do with getting students prepared for that certification exam. You will also want to see what their clinical sites are. Are they doing more individual at-home care in those clinical sites? Are you going to be able to work in a facility and see what that looks like? Does that meet what you're looking for in your education and your field work for your field? You will also want to look at the requirements for the school of interest that you're looking at. So what are the admission requirements to the program? Occupational therapy students complete an application called the OTCAS. This is the national application for occupational therapy programs. So that is where you'll do your application. You'll have to meet the requirements that are listed on there as well to be certified to be a student in any licensed occupational therapy program. And you'll also want to determine what are the prerequisite courses for that program. Do you have to complete those courses in the United States? Will they accept coursework from outside of the US? And if they will, do you need a third-party evaluation, or will they evaluate the coursework at the university? And as you go through the application process, if there's other exams, be mindful of that. And then also make sure you meet the deadlines for the program and also any scholarships that you may qualify for. We'll go to the next slide. Similar for physical therapy, it is a fast-growing field. Right now, there's 13,900 openings in the United States for physical therapy positions that will remain unfilled just because we don't have enough graduates to meet the demand. So you do have immense job security and a lot of choice in terms of where you'd want to work and how you'd want to work. Like we talked about with physical therapists, a lot of them work in hospitals or outpatient care centers immediately after a patient's been discharged from the hospital to provide that immediate aftercare in giving a patient more mobility and independence. Some also work in the home of the patient immediately after the patient has gone home. So you do have a bit of flexibility in terms of where you'd be working with your patients and how you'd be working with them, and to what extent you'd be working with them immediately after some type of a medical situation that has required a physical therapist to intervene. We'll go to the next slide. Similarly, with the occupational therapy, you will want to check with a physical therapy program in terms of with their certification exam, how many of their students had passed in the last year and what their average score was. With the clinical sites for physical therapy, you're going to see so many different types of schools that will have very different kinds of physical therapy clinical sites. So a lot of times in larger cities, if you go to a physical therapy program, you're going to be working in very large hospitals for your clinical sites. If you are in a more suburban or rural type of physical therapy program, you may be doing more site visits to homes and doing more small clinic type of physical therapy clinical sites. So depending on what you're wanting to accomplish in those clinical sites, you will want to kind of ask what those rotations typically look like. Does it have a good variety, or does it have a specific specialization to what you're looking for? With physical therapy programs, they're going to have general university requirements. The PATCAS or the PTCAS, that is the physical therapy application for licensed physical therapy programs. That's where you'll do your application. They're going to have specific requirements that are required nationally to be able to go into a licensed physical therapy program. And then similarly, if there's prerequisite coursework that they require from the bachelor's degree, do you need to do it in the United States, or will they accept coursework from outside of the US? And will there be a third-party evaluation requirement for that? With physical therapy programs, a lot of times you do have to apply pretty early because they do have small cohorts to maintain their licensure. So do check on those deadlines. If there's scholarships available, make sure that you have those scholarship deadlines in your calendar as well. We'll go to our next slide. So just to give you a quick introduction to my university before we open it up to questions. I know we've talked about a lot of different programs, and my university does offer quite a few of these different programs that we talked about today. So if you have more questions that you would like to be able to engage with a faculty member directly, you're welcome to reach out to me, and I'd be happy to connect you to our faculty. Whether you choose to come to our university or not, I think that it may be very informative and helpful for you. My university, University of Мэри Хардин-Бейлор, we're the oldest continuously operating university in the state of Texas. So we were founded when Texas was its own country. We are a private university in Central Texas. We come from a Christian tradition. You do not have to be a Christian to attend the university. We have students that represent over 10 different religious backgrounds outside of the Christian faith. We have around 3,600 students from 35 different countries. Roughly 600 of our students are graduate and 3,000 are undergraduate. We talked about some of these different programs today, but at my university, we do offer a BSN, a nursing program. We also have a master's in nursing. We have a pre-med program where most of our students, after they finish pre-med with us, go on to UT Austin, UT Dallas, or the University of Houston for their medical studies. We also offer a physician assistant program, occupational therapy, and physical therapy. All of those programs do accept international students into their programs. If you're an undergraduate student and you are interested in athletics, we do compete on the Division III level nationally with 16 different sports. And all of our undergraduate and postgraduate students receive an international student scholarship. So you're 100% guaranteed a partial scholarship for your education. You may also qualify for program-specific scholarships as well. You'll see my contact details, my email and WhatsApp. You're welcome to send me a message or ask me any questions. You'll also see my personal email here. If you decide that you'd like to apply to my university, send me a message and let me know that you attended this webinar today, and I can waive your application fee. But we will now open it up for any questions.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. So much information. This topic is highly in demand.
Yes, it's a very, it's a lot of information to absorb, I'm sure.
Yeah, it is. But thank you for doing it. Thank you for providing this information, being with us today. Let's turn to the questions. And
Sure.
And another thing to highlight, thank you for offering application fee waiver. That's what you said.
Yes. For
That's
anyone
an amazing
who attended the
opportunity.
webinar, send me a message and I can waive your application fee to my school specifically. Can't promise
That's
anybody
great.
else, but I can
Sure,
definitely help
thank
answer
you.
other questions.
It's appreciated. So first question, is that necessary to finish my bachelor's in United States to apply for medical school there? Or I can finish my bachelor's here in Kazakhstan first and apply for medical school in USA after?
It's going to depend. Typically, the schools that are going to have more intense requirements will typically require that the degree is completed in the United States. But that's not necessarily a perfect rule either. Every school will be different. For some schools, they will accept bachelor's degrees from outside of the United States. A lot of times they will require some type of evaluation or confirmation of the degree. So you will want to ask and see, do they need a third-party evaluation if they do accept a degree outside of the U.S.? And what specific courses would they need completed in your home country in order to qualify you for a medical program at their school?
The person is clarifying that it is for dentistry, but the answer would be the same, right?
It would be the same, yeah.
All right, that's great. Let's address the second question. Hello, if I have a bachelor's degree in biology and biomedical sciences, can I apply to medical school?
So in general, with medical schools in the United States, they look to see that you have an accredited bachelor's degree. So no matter what you did your bachelor's degree, whether it was biology or business, you would meet that specific qualification. In addition to a bachelor's degree, they will have a list of prerequisite courses or courses that they'd want to see that you finished in that bachelor's degree. In general, a biology or biomedical science degree will have all or most of the courses that are going to be on that prerequisite list. If there's any courses that are missing that you did not complete in that bachelor's degree, they will ask that you take those courses prior to applying to their medical school.
Okay, just to clarify, for example, your school, do you do evaluations, or do you recommend approaching some other companies to evaluate the diplomas or the courses previously taken?
Right. So it depends on the program. So if a student's applying for pre-med or for nursing, I do their evaluations of their high school coursework or any bachelor's degree coursework that they're transferring in. If they are applying to the physician assistant or occupational therapy or physical therapy, for those specific certifications, and for our school, we do require that they need to do a third-party evaluation. Whether they plan to use WES or Spantran or Scalaro, we leave it to them to decide. But we would need that for those 3 specific programs.
I see. Thank you. Let's move on to the next question. Are there any MD, PhD programs and specific fields that may require one?
That would require an evaluation?
Yeah, sorry. It's a separate question. I'm not sure. I'm confused about are there any MD, PhD programs and specific fields that may require one? I'm not sure, Adina, if you can maybe clarify, what did you mean by saying one? Okay, let's for now switch the question. Is there any grants for MD or scholarships?
It's going to depend on the school. A lot of schools will have some type of assistantship or fellowship program where you working for the university doing research or providing some kind of basic health care at their university hospital that they would be paying for your education. Some do have traditional scholarships, which would be them providing you funding just on the basis of your academic merits. There are other medical schools that offer no funding or scholarships whatsoever. So it will depend school by school. You will want to ask each school that you're shortlisting in terms of what their funding looks like and also what their expected costs would be, because medical schools, it really depends on the school. Some of the schools that have some of the lower tuition will be around maybe $40,000 a year in tuition. And those that are going to be the most expensive are going to be around $80,000 per year in tuition costs. So it'll also depend if a school is $80,000 and they're giving you a $10,000 scholarship. Is that the best kind of financial choice for you if finances is something that's really important in your short list compared to a school that might be $50,000 in tuition but offers no funding?
I see. Yeah, healthcare field is very expensive, but at the end of the day, it pays off after graduation. Yeah, we saw the salary
Correct.
rate. Let's move on to the next question. What should I study at bachelor's to continue studying dentistry after?
So in general, with dentistry schools, the prerequisite courses that they would have are going to be very similar to an MD program. So you would need to take biology, biochem, chemistry, as some of the courses, several other lab sciences. So in general, dentistry students will either do a health science major, because that typically will cover all of those fields, biology, chemistry, or biochem.
Great, thank you. So I think we don't have more questions, right? Yes, here you go. What the medical university, which is really good, have a full ride for international students? Again, we're talking about scholarships. Are there any full ride scholarships for international students?
I'm not sure. I think that since my school does not have a medical school, I just know of the schools that our students typically apply to. And I know with those schools, they do not have full ride scholarships. That I think would be a good question to ask specific medical schools, or to, connect with your EducationUSA advisors, because they would be informed by schools in terms of what their funding opportunities are. If a school is offering that, they typically will provide that information to EducationUSA.
Great answer. I have another question. Are there work study opportunities available for international students? What are the key components of a strong application for international students?
So every campus will be a little different. For my campus, we do offer work study for international students. Our international students who want to work on work study, we put them into our work study application portal, and students will apply to positions, and the on-campus employers are able to see all of the candidates as well, not just the ones who've applied, to see who's the best qualified or the best fit for them. With work study positions, they're so different in so many different ways. A research work study, what they're going to be looking for is going to be very different than an administrative work study position, or residential life is going to be looking for something very different than food services. But I think what's important if you do apply for work study at a university is to be able to provide your soft skill abilities as well as your more definitive skill abilities. So not just to highlight that you're able to type so many words per minute, but also how do you work as a team? How are you able to communicate with different team members? Those types of soft skills are also very important for on-campus employers.
Yes, sweet. Thank you for highlighting soft skills. It's relevant anytime in any field. That's great. And how can I get hands-on experience in US hospital as an international student?
So I think there's a couple of different ways that you can do that. Of course, one area, if you're working in a healthcare, or if you're studying in a healthcare type of field like nursing or physician assistant, there's going to be a period of time that you're going to be doing clinical rotations that's required for your degree to go in and get that hands-on experience. Like we talked about with physician assistants, I think they require, 1,000 hours of contact hours, a ton of time that you're going to be in hospitals and things like that. If you're in like pre-med right now and you're looking to go into an MD, a couple of ways that you could get involved and have those opportunities at US hospitals would be to see if you can volunteer to read to kids at a children's hospital. Several of my family members are nurses in pretty large hospitals, and they talk about some of the different volunteer opportunities that they've seen. So in that first year or two before you're able to do internship in a hospital, if you're able to go and be a sitter or be able to read to kids at a hospital, I think that that'll give you good exposure to what the pacing of a hospital looks like. In the United States, as an international student, you are able to volunteer. That does not violate your immigration status. And hospitals are always looking for people to pass certain background checks to be able to either sit with patients that need to have somebody present at all times, but the nurses can't be there all the time, or to be able to sit with children at a hospital so they're not sitting alone. So those are two examples specifically that I know in a U.S. hospital that you could definitely do within your first year.
Sweet, that's great. Let's move on to the next one. I would like to receive a medical grant, but before medical, it is necessary to pass the faculty of biology. Is it possible to immediately receive a grant that will cover both biological and medical specialties?
So a scholarship both for an MD and then it looks like maybe a pre-med as well. Typically, these are going to be two separate programs, which will have two separate costs and two separate funding sources. Even if you're going to the same university for both fields, you're going to be applying to the first one, your pre-med biology, and then you'd be reapplying into the MD program. So it's possible to receive funding for both, but you're not going to know that you've received funding for both at the front of the first step. You're going to first do the pre-med and have the funding opportunities there and go through and be successful there. And then you would go on and apply for the MD program, get admitted, and see what funding opportunities are there.
Thank you. We have another question. What kind of fields can I use MD, PhD? Are there any program schools that specifically offer combined MD, PhD?
So I think there's a couple of schools that have an MD and a PhD. I don't know if they necessarily will let you do them both simultaneously at the same time, but just to kind of talk through what an MD versus what a PhD in healthcare would look like. An MD is going to give you more hands-on experience. You're going to do all of those clinical types of field work. You're going to have to do your fellowships and things like that. And after completing the degree, you are working with patients hands-on in the field. A PhD, whether it's a PhD in medical sciences or a PhD in art, that is going to be a research-intensive field. And after completing that, you are either going to be teaching or you're going to be doing research. So you wouldn't be working hands-on with patients or something like that, for example. So depending on what your goals are right now, if you're wanting to teach and do research, or if you're wanting to work with patients hands-on in a clinic or in a hospital, I would recommend, pursuing that specific degree that meets that specific goal for you right now. And if down the line, completing the other degree will be helpful for you in your career goals, then move into that direction after that.
Nice. Nicely put. Another question, we had this one. What are the career opportunities for public health alumni?
We did not talk about public health today. We may have to talk about that another time, but public health specialists a lot of times are working either in hospitals, providing resources and information for patients on how to set up preventative healthcare measures. They also work in public schools, teaching children on how to best have overall wellness and health. So how to wash your hands and things like that. They also work in nonprofit clinics and other health clinics, providing resources for people in a community in terms of how to prevent contagious diseases and things like that. So they work in a lot of different kind of scopes, but a lot of what they do is education and advocacy, trying to help prevent a situation from happening rather than being there providing healthcare after that kind of an incident has happened.
Nice. And another question, do universities offer scholarships to international students pursuing a pre-medical program?
So most universities that will offer scholarships for their bachelor's degree students will extend those scholarships to pre-med bachelor's degree students. So you'll have to check with each school to see if they offer scholarships for international students for a bachelor's degree. In general, if they say yes, that means that they do offer scholarships to pre-med students as well.
Sweet. Are there more questions? I don't see any more coming. All right then. No questions. All right, thank you very much, Rebecca. And you already shared your email. So if you have more questions and dear potential students, if you want to ask individually, you can email to Rebecca and she can help you out. Thank you very much for the presentation and addressing all these questions. It was great. As you can see, it is in demand. People are asking so many questions. Some of them are probably shy. And what else? If you have other questions.
It makes me happy to see so many people considering the profession of healthcare. Like we've talked about nationally and internationally, there is such a need for healthcare workers. And as we look to see, so many doctors and nurses will be retiring in the next 10 years. We need professionals that are going to be there to provide care. So I'm very excited to see so many people considering this field. It's a very rewarding field of study and a very rewarding career outcome as well. So if you've got questions, you're welcome to reach out to me. If I don't have the answers, I'll get you to my physician assistant, nursing, pre-med people, and they can help provide more resources and information about their specific area to kind of get you started as you do your research about studying in the United States.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. Yeah, it is a beautiful field of study. So I wish you good luck. And if you have other application process related questions, please approach your local EducationUSA advisors. We are welcome. We are happy to help. And if there are no more questions, I don't want to occupy too much of your time, Rebecca. Thank you again. I wish you good luck. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.